The weakest are always judged first. The strongest are never judged in time. Dear viewer, remember that line, because the story I am about to tell you will prove it in the most brutal way imaginable. A boy walked into the most prestigious magic academy on the continent. They measured his power. They laughed. They stamped his file with a single letter, E, the lowest rank ever recorded at Argentwhile Academy, recommended for immediate expulsion. And every single person in that ceremony hall clapped, not for him, at him. But here is what none of them knew. Here is what even he did not know yet. Inside his blood ran the legacy of a man who once commanded spirits so powerful that entire kingdoms kneeled. And one of those spirits had been waiting in the dark, waiting for that exact bloodline to walk through a forbidden door. Stay with me, dear viewer. Subscribe to RiseArc right now, because this saga is about to shatter everything you think you know about power, sacrifice, and what it truly costs to become the strongest. 12 years before the ceremony, in a stone courtyard lit by torches, a boy named Nathaniel Orinwald sat on his grandfather's knee. General Aldrich Orinwald was not a soft man. His hands were scarred from decades of war. His eyes carried the weight of battles that history books refused to record. But when he looked at his grandson, those eyes softened. Nathaniel was 6 years old. He did not understand politics. He did not understand why soldiers had started appearing around their estate. He did not understand why his mother cried at night. All he knew was that his grandfather smelled like iron and old leather, and that sitting on his knee felt like sitting on a throne. Aldrich spoke quietly that night. He said, "Boy, the world will tell you that spirits are dangerous, that binding with them is forbidden, that anyone who walks the old path is a traitor to the crown." He paused. His jaw tightened. "They will say I was a criminal. They will say I betrayed humanity by protecting those beings. But you listen to me, Nathaniel. You listen carefully. The spirits gave everything for this world. Everything. And the crown repaid them with chains and slaughter." Nathaniel did not fully understand, but he felt the weight of those words settle into his chest like a stone dropped into still water. He looked up at his grandfather and said the only thing a 6-year-old could say, "I believe you, grandfather. I will prove you were right. Someday, I promise." Aldrich smiled. It was the last time Nathaniel ever saw him smile. 3 days later, soldiers broke down the doors at dawn. They dragged General Aldrich Orinwald into the courtyard. They read charges that Nathaniel could not understand: treason against the magisterium, conspiracy with hostile spiritual entities, violation of the Binding Prohibition Act. The words meant nothing to a child, but the sound of the blade meant everything. They did not let Nathaniel watch. His mother covered his eyes and pulled him inside, but he heard it. The single, clean sound of metal through air, and then silence. A silence so complete that it swallowed the entire world. After that day, everything changed. The Orinwald estate was seized, their titles were stripped, their lands were redistributed to loyal families. Nathaniel's mother, Sarah Orinwald, was permitted to live only because she renounced her husband's family name publicly. She took Nathaniel to a small village on the border. They lived in a house with a leaking roof and walls that let the winter wind through for 12 years. Nathaniel grew up as a nobody, the grandson of a traitor, the boy with cursed blood. Children threw stones, adults turned away. Teachers at the village school seated him in the back corner and forgot he existed. He had no magic, not a spark, not a flicker. Every year, the village conducted basic aptitude tests, and every year, Nathaniel's results came back the same: 0 affinity, 0 potential, 0 future. But he never forgot that promise. He whispered it to himself every night before sleep. "I will prove you were right, grandfather, someday." When Nathaniel turned 18, a letter arrived. It was stamped with the silver seal of Argentwhile Academy, the most elite magical institution on the continent. His acceptance was not based on talent. It was based on a clause buried deep in imperial law. The descendants of former generals, regardless of disgrace, were entitled to one attempt at enrollment, one single chance. It was a formality, a cruel joke written into law by bureaucrats who never expected anyone to actually use it. Nathaniel used it. His mother begged him not to go. She said they would eat him alive. She said the academy was filled with the children of the very people who destroyed their family. She said he had no magic and no chance. But Nathaniel looked at her with eyes that reminded her so much of Aldrich that she could not speak another word. He packed a single bag. He wore his grandfather's old military coat, patched and faded, and he walked out the door toward Argentwhile. The academy rose from the cliffs like a cathedral of ambition. Towers of white stone pierced the clouds. Bridges of crystallized manna connected buildings that floated above the ground. Students arrived in carriages pulled by enchanted beasts. They wore uniforms of silk and silver thread. They carried staffs inlaid with gemstones worth more than Nathaniel's entire village. He arrived on foot, dusty, thin, wearing a dead man's coat. The ceremony of distribution was held in the grand atrium, a hall so vast that the ceiling disappeared into magical fog. Every first-year student stood before the resonance crystal, a pillar of pure condensed mana that measured magical potential on contact. The scale ran from S rank at the top to E rank at the bottom. In the entire history of Argentwhile, only 3 students had ever received an E rank. All 3 had been expelled within a week. Names were called alphabetically. Nathaniel watched as student after student placed their hand on the crystal. Blue light, green light, gold light. The crowd cheered for every A rank and above. When Ricard Solnvarn, the golden-haired son of Duke Solnvarn, received an S rank, the hall erupted. Ricard smiled like a man who had never been told no in his entire life. Then the announcer called the name Orinwald. The hall went quiet. Not silent. Quiet in the way a crowd goes quiet when they smell blood. Whispers rippled through the rows. Orinwald. Is that not the traitor's family? I heard they were all dead. Why is he here? Look at his coat. Is that a military coat? Disgusting. Nathaniel walked forward. His boots echoed on the marble floor. He kept his eyes straight ahead. He placed his hand on the resonance crystal. Nothing happened. For 3 full seconds, the crystal remained dark. Then, at the very bottom, a faint gray light flickered. The announcer leaned forward, squinting at the readout panel. His face twisted with something between pity and contempt. He cleared his throat. E rank. Recommended for expulsion review. The hall exploded. Not with anger, with laughter. Applause broke out, mocking and rhythmic. Students clapped slowly, deliberately. Someone in the back shouted, "Send him home!" Another voice called out, "Traitor blood runs thin." Nathaniel stood there. He did not flinch. He did not look down. He removed his hand from the crystal and walked back to his seat with the same steady pace he had used to approach it. His face showed nothing. But inside his chest, that stone his grandfather had placed 12 years ago burned like a coal. The first week at Argentwhile was a masterclass in cruelty. Nathaniel was assigned to the lowest dormitory, a converted storage room in the basement level. His roommates were 2 other low-ranked students who wanted nothing to do with him. They feared that association with the traitor's grandson would drag them down further. His textbooks disappeared on the 2nd day. His uniform was found in the courtyard fountain on the 3rd. On the 4th day, someone carved the word "worthless" into his desk with a knife. The professors did not intervene. Some of them smiled. But Nathaniel attended every class. He sat in the front row. He took notes with borrowed paper and a pencil stub he found on the floor. He asked questions that made professors uncomfortable because they revealed how deeply he had studied theory despite having no practical ability. He knew more about magical history than students 3 years his senior. He understood the architecture of spell construction better than most teaching assistants. None of it mattered. Without mana, theory was just words on paper. Now, dear viewer, Here is where the story takes a turn that nobody in that academy could have predicted. Not the students, not the professors, not even the man who orchestrated everything from the shadows. Professor Lysandra Velketh taught advanced spiritual theory. She was tall, severe, with silver hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face. Her eyes were the color of frozen lakes. She had a reputation for two things. First, she was brilliant. Second, she was cruel. Her assignments were designed not to teach, but to break. Students who failed her class did not simply receive low marks. They were humiliated publicly, their failures dissected before the entire lecture hall. On the third week of term, Lysandra called Nathaniel to her office. The room smelled of old paper and something metallic. Shelves lined every wall, filled with books bound in materials that did not look like leather. She did not offer him a seat. "Orinwald," she said, "your theoretical scores are exceptional. Your practical scores are non-existent. This creates a problem for my records. I do not like problems in my records." Nathaniel said nothing. He waited. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I am going to give you an assignment, a special one. Consider it your final examination. If you complete it, you remain enrolled. If you fail, you are expelled immediately. No appeal, no second chance." She placed a single sheet of paper on her desk. On it was written one sentence: "Enter the Forbidden Library. Summon a spirit patron." Nathaniel stared at the paper. The Forbidden Library was located beneath the Academy's foundation. It was sealed behind 7 layers of warding. Students were told it contained texts too dangerous for mortal minds. But the truth, whispered in dormitory halls after midnight, was worse. The library was not just a collection of books, it was a prison. Ancient spirits were bound there, trapped in the pages of grimoires written in blood. 3 students had entered the Forbidden Library in the past century. None had returned alive. Lysandra watched his face carefully. She was waiting for fear. She was waiting for him to beg, to refuse, to prove that he was as weak as his rank suggested. Nathaniel picked up the paper. He folded it carefully and placed it in his coat pocket. "When do I go?" he asked. "Tomorrow night," she said, and her smile widened. That evening, Nathaniel sat alone in his basement room. He held his grandfather's coat in his hands and ran his fingers over the patches. He thought about the promise. He thought about the sound of that blade 12 years ago. He thought about his mother's face when he left. Then he thought about something else. Something his grandfather had told him once, years ago, in a whisper so quiet that Nathaniel was not sure he had actually heard it. He said, "If you ever find yourself in a place where spirits are kept against their will, do not be afraid. They remember our blood. They remember what I did for them." At the time, Nathaniel had not understood. Now, sitting in the dark beneath Argentwhile Academy, he understood perfectly. The entrance to the Forbidden Library was a door of black iron set into the foundation stone. 7 seals glowed faintly around its frame, each one a different color. Lysandra stood beside it, her arms crossed. She did not speak. She simply gestured toward the door. Nathaniel placed his hand on the iron. The seals flickered. One by one, they dimmed. Not because Nathaniel broke them, because something on the other side recognized his touch and pulled the wards apart from within. Lysandra's expression changed. For the first time since Nathaniel had known her, she looked uncertain. The door opened. Beyond it was darkness so complete that light seemed afraid to enter. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell like ancient stone and something else. Something alive. Nathaniel stepped through. The door closed behind him. Inside the Forbidden Library, the darkness was not empty. It breathed. It watched. Nathaniel could feel a tension pressing against his skin like the weight of deep water. He walked forward, one hand trailing along a wall of rough stone. His footsteps made no sound. The floor seemed to absorb everything. Then light appeared, not from above, from within the walls themselves. Faint, violet luminescence, pulsing like a heartbeat. It illuminated rows of shelves that stretched upward into infinity. Books bound in chains, scrolls sealed with wax the color of dried blood. And between the shelves, shadows moved. Not his shadow, other shadows, shapes that turned to watch him pass. He walked deeper. The light grew stronger. The pulse grew faster. And then he reached the center, a circular chamber. The ceiling was a dome of carved stone depicting a battle between spirits and humans. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal. On the pedestal lay a single book. It was not chained. It was not sealed. It lay open, its pages blank. No, not blank. As Nathaniel approached, words began to appear. They wrote themselves in ink the color of violet fire. They wrote in a language he should not have been able to read, but he could. Every word was clear. The words said, "I have waited 412 years for the blood of Aldrich to return to me. Come closer. Boy, let me see if you are worthy of what your grandfather promised." Nathaniel stepped forward. The air around the pedestal shimmered, and then he was no longer alone. The spirit materialized like smoke given form. He was enormous, 7 feet tall, clad in armor that seemed forged from solidified shadow. His face was angular, severe, with eyes that burned like molten gold. His hair was white as bone, flowing behind him despite the absence of wind. He carried no weapon, but his presence alone made the air vibrate with barely contained violence. This was Vainheart, spirit of war, first rank, the most powerful combat spirit ever bound to a human summoner. The spirit that had fought beside General Aldrich Orinwald in 17 campaigns. The spirit that had been imprisoned here when Aldrich was executed. Vainheart looked down at Nathaniel, his golden eyes narrowed. He spoke, and his voice was like thunder trapped in a cathedral. "You are small. You are weak. You have no mana of your own. You smell like poverty and desperation." He paused. "But your blood sings the same song as his." The old general. The only human who ever treated me as an equal rather than a tool. Nathaniel met those burning eyes without flinching. He said, "My grandfather told me you would remember." Vainheart was silent for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression. Not softness. Spirits of war did not do softness, but recognition. Respect for the audacity of standing before a being that could unmake mountains and refusing to look away. "I will offer you a contract, boy, but understand what you are agreeing to. My power is not free. It was never free. Your grandfather paid with his life. You will pay with something else, something you will not miss at first. But eventually, you will realize what you have lost, and by then, it will be too late." "What is the price?" Nathaniel asked. "Memories," Vainheart said. "Every time you draw on my power, I take a memory. Small ones at first. The taste of a meal you once enjoyed, the sound of rain on a specific afternoon. But as you grow stronger, the memories grow larger. Faces, names, moments that defined who you are. Eventually, if you draw too deeply, you will forget everything. You will become nothing but a vessel for war, a weapon without a wielder." Nathaniel thought of his mother's face. He thought of his grandfather's voice. He thought of the promise he had made 12 years ago. Could he risk losing those things? Could he risk forgetting why he was fighting in the first place? He thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Then he extended his hand. "I accept." Vainheart grasped his hand. The spirit's grip was like being seized by a glacier. Cold beyond cold. Pain beyond pain. Violet light erupted from the point of contact, flooding the chamber, flooding Nathaniel's body, flooding his mind. He felt something vast and ancient pour into him like a river breaking through a dam. Power. Raw, overwhelming, terrifying power. It filled spaces inside him that he never knew were empty. It rewrote the architecture of his soul. And somewhere, in a small, quiet corner of his mind, something disappeared. A memory. The taste of the bread his mother baked on his 7th birthday. Gone. Simply gone. As if it had never existed. The light faded. Nathaniel stood in the chamber, breathing hard. His hand was still extended, but Vainheart was no longer visible. The spirit had merged with him, bound to his soul, present but unseen. Nathaniel looked down at his hands. Violet light flickered beneath his skin, pulsing with his heartbeat. He felt different, not just stronger, fundamentally altered, as if someone had taken apart every cell in his body and reassembled them with better materials. He turned and walked back toward the door. When Nathaniel emerged from the forbidden library, Lysandra was still standing there. She had expected to wait all night. She had expected to never see him again. She had expected to file a death report in the morning and move on with her semester. Instead, the door opened after 40 minutes, and the boy who walked out was not the same boy who walked in. His eyes glowed. Violet light pulsed in his irises like captured lightning. The air around him hummed with contained energy. His posture had changed. His shoulders were back. His chin was raised. He moved like someone who knew exactly how much space he occupied in the world and was no longer apologizing for it. Lysandra took one step backward. It was involuntary. Her body recognized a predator before her mind could process what she was seeing. She whispered, almost to herself, "He is bound to a spirit of war. First rank. That is impossible. That has not happened in 400 years. Nathaniel looked at her. His violet eyes were calm, steady. He said, "I completed your assignment, Professor. I trust my enrollment is secure?" He walked past her without waiting for an answer. Now, dear viewer, you might think this is the part where everything gets easy for our hero. You might think that with the power of an ancient war spirit flowing through his veins, Nathaniel simply dominated everyone and lived happily ever after. But that is not how this story works, because power without control is just destruction. And Nathaniel had a secret that made everything infinitely more complicated. He could not let anyone know what he had. Think about it. His grandfather was executed for consorting with spirits. The Binding Prohibition Act made spirit contracts illegal. If the Academy discovered that Nathaniel had bound with Vainheart, he would not simply be expelled, he would be executed. Just like Aldrich, the same blade, the same courtyard, the same silence afterward. So Nathaniel did something that required more strength than any battle. He pretended to still be weak. During the day, he attended classes as before. He sat in the front row. He took notes. He failed practical examinations deliberately. He let other students mock him. He let professors shake their heads in disappointment. He wore his E-rank badge like a brand of shame and never once let the violet light show in his eyes. But at night, everything changed. After midnight, when the dormitories were silent, Nathaniel would slip out through a maintenance passage he had discovered in the basement. He would make his way to the abandoned training grounds behind the old armory, a place so overgrown and forgotten that even the groundskeepers avoided it. And there, alone under the stars, he would train. Vainheart's voice would fill his mind. Not gentle, never gentle. The spirit of war did not believe in encouragement. He believed in repetition, pain, and the absolute refusal to accept weakness. Again, the spirit would command, "Your stance is wrong. Your breathing is wrong. Your intent is scattered." A warrior does not think about striking. A warrior becomes the strike. Again, Nathaniel would practice until his muscles screamed, until his bones ached, until the violet energy flowing through him felt less like a foreign invasion and more like a natural extension of his body. Night after night, week after week. And slowly, something remarkable happened. He began to understand what Vainheart truly was. Not just a source of power, a teacher, a mentor, a being who had spent 4 centuries alone in the dark, waiting, thinking, refining on what war truly meant. Vainheart had fought in conflicts that predated the current empire by centuries. He had seen civilizations rise and crumble, He had watched humans repeat the same mistakes generation after generation. And in all that time, only one human had earned his genuine respect: Aldrich Orinwald. Now, bound to Aldrich's grandson, Vainhart found something he had not expected: purpose. Not just the purpose of combat, but the purpose of legacy, of finishing what Aldrich had started. During their nightly training sessions, between the brutal physical drills and the mana channeling exercises, Vainhart would speak. He told Nathaniel about the old wars, about the time when spirits and humans fought side by side against threats that neither could face alone. About the betrayal, when the Magisterium decided that spirits were too powerful to remain free and began the Great Binding, imprisoning thousands of sentient beings in grimoires and weapons and sealed vaults beneath academies just like Argentwhile. He told Nathaniel about Aldrich's role in all of it, how the general had refused orders to participate in the binding, how he had hidden spirits, smuggled them to safety, created underground networks to protect them, how he had been discovered, tried in secret, and executed before dawn. And he told Nathaniel something else, something that changed everything. "The man who signed your grandfather's death warrant," Vainhart said one night, his voice echoing inside Nathaniel's mind. "The man who ordered the execution and personally oversaw the seizure of your family's lands. He is still alive. He is here, in this academy." Nathaniel stopped mid-strike. His practice sword hung frozen in the air. "Who?" he asked. "Voss Hargraven," Vainhart said. "The current dean of Argentwhile Academy." The name hit Nathaniel like a physical blow. Dean Hargraven. The silver-haired patriarch who presided over every ceremony, who smiled benevolently at students from his elevated podium, who was revered as the greatest magical scholar of his generation. That man had killed his grandfather. Nathaniel lowered his sword. His hands were shaking. Not with fear, with something far more dangerous. With the kind of cold, patient fury that does not explode, but calcifies, that hardens into something unbreakable. Good. Vainhart said, "Remember that feeling. Let it become your foundation. But do not act on it yet. You are not ready. He is powerful beyond what you can currently imagine, and he is surrounded by allies who would destroy you without hesitation. We must be patient. We must be strategic. We must become so strong that when the moment comes, there is no possibility of failure." Nathaniel nodded in the darkness. He raised his sword again. He resumed training, and he did not stop until dawn painted the sky red. Weeks passed. Nathaniel maintained his double life with meticulous discipline. By day, the weakest student. By night, a warrior being forged in the fires of an ancient spirit's knowledge. The contrast was so extreme that it created a kind of dark humor in his daily existence. He would sit in combat theory class, listening to Professor Aldwin explain basic strike patterns, while inside his mind, Vainhart would critique every word. Incorrect. That stance leaves the left flank exposed. Your grandfather would have failed any soldier who fought like that. But there was one person who noticed that something had changed. One person whose eyes were sharp enough to see past the mask. Ilara Mirathan was a second-year student in the Healing Arts Division. She was quiet, almost invisible, with pale silver hair that fell past her shoulders and eyes the color of morning frost. She came from a minor noble family with no political power and no enemies. She was the kind of person who moved through the academy like a ghost, noticed by no one, bothering no one. She noticed Nathaniel on the day of his distribution ceremony. Not because of his E rank, not because of the laughter. She noticed him because of what he did not do. He did not cry. He did not rage. He did not beg. He simply walked back to his seat with the calm of someone who already knew something that everyone else did not. That calm fascinated her. After the ceremony, she watched him from a distance. She saw how he attended every class despite the abuse. She saw how he studied with borrowed materials. She saw the quiet, unbreakable determination in his eyes. And she saw something else, something that made her breath catch. One night, unable to sleep, she had been walking the academy grounds. She passed near the old armory, and through a gap in the overgrown hedges, she saw him. Training, moving with a speed and precision that should have been impossible for an E-rank student. Violet light flickering around his hands like captive stars. She did not report him. She did not tell anyone. She simply filed the information away and continued watching. And one morning, 3 weeks after the distribution ceremony, she sat down across from him in the dining hall. The table around Nathaniel was always empty. Other students avoided him like contamination. So when Alara placed her tray opposite his and sat down without a word, the entire hall noticed. Whispers erupted. The healer girl is sitting with the zero. Is she insane? Does she want to be an outcast too? Alara ignored them all. She looked at Nathaniel with those frost-colored eyes and said simply, "You are not what they think you are." Nathaniel looked up from his food. His expression was carefully neutral. "I do not know what you mean." She smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it was real. "I saw you training," she said quietly. 3 nights ago, behind the old armory." She paused. "Your secret is safe with me, but I want you to know that you are not alone here. Not anymore." For a long moment, Nathaniel said nothing. He studied her face, looking for deception, for ulterior motives, for the trap that surely must be hidden behind such an offer. He found nothing but sincerity. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you risk your reputation for someone like me?" Alara tilted her head slightly. "Because my grandmother was a spirit healer," she said, "before the Prohibition. She healed spirits who were injured in battle. She believed they were people, not weapons. When the binding began, she refused to participate. They took her license. They erased her from the medical registry. She died in poverty, forgotten by everyone." She looked directly into Nathaniel's eyes. "I know what it is like to carry a family's disgrace, and I know what it looks like when someone is fighting back." From that day forward, Alara became Nathaniel's only ally within the academy walls. She did not train with him, she could not fight, but she provided something equally valuable: information. As a healer, she had access to parts of the academy that combat students did not: the medical archives, the faculty records, the restricted sections of the main library where student files were kept. And she provided something else. Something that Nathaniel did not realize he needed until he had it: human connection. Someone who knew his secret and did not fear him for it. Someone who looked at him and saw not the E-rank badge or the traitor's grandson, but the person underneath. In a world of masks and deception, Alara was the one place where Nathaniel could be honest. Now, dear viewer, let me tell you about the day everything almost fell apart. It was the 6th week of term. Nathaniel was in his combat practicals class, deliberately performing poorly as usual. The instructor, a bored, middle-aged man named Gregor, had paired students for sparring exercises. By some cruel coincidence, or perhaps by design, Nathaniel was paired with Ricard Solnvarn. Ricard was everything Nathaniel was not, at least on the surface. Tall, golden-haired, radiating confidence and privilege. His S rank blazed on his uniform like a medal. His family was one of the wealthiest in the empire. His father sat on the magisterium council. He had never known a moment of doubt or deprivation in his entire gilded life. And he hated Nathaniel with a passion that went beyond simple bullying. It was personal. Ricard's family had been among those who received the Orinwald lands after Aldrich's execution. The Solnvarn country estate was built on ground that once belonged to Nathaniel's family. Every time Ricard looked at Nathaniel, he saw a reminder that his family's wealth was built on another family's destruction. And rather than feel guilt, he felt rage. Rage at Nathaniel for existing, for daring to show his face in a place where Solnvarn money paid for half the buildings. The sparring began. Ricard attacked immediately, not with training-level force, but with genuine killing intent barely restrained. His strikes were fast, powerful, backed by S-rank mana that made the air crackle. Nathaniel dodged, deflected, retreated. He made it look clumsy, accidental, like a weak student barely surviving through luck. But Ricard was not fooled. Or rather, he did not care whether Nathaniel was weak or not. He wanted to hurt him. He increased his speed. His strikes became harder. A blow caught Nathaniel's shoulder and sent him spinning. Another grazed his ribs. The class watched in uncomfortable silence. Instructor Gregor did nothing. Then Ricard did something that crossed a line. He channeled mana into his training sword, something explicitly forbidden in basic sparring, and swung at Nathaniel's head. Not to score a point, to maim. Time slowed. Nathaniel saw the blade coming. He saw the blue-white glow of concentrated mana along its edge. He calculated the trajectory. It would hit his temple. At that power level, it would crack his skull. It might kill him. Inside his mind, Vaneheart roared, "Move!" Nathaniel's body reacted before his conscious mind could intervene. He did not dodge. He did not block. He stepped inside the arc of the swing, caught Ricard's wrist with his left hand, and with his right, delivered a single palm strike to Ricard's solar plexus. The impact was surgical, precise, devastating. Ricard flew backwards 6 feet and hit the ground so hard that the wooden floor cracked beneath him. He lay there, gasping, unable to breathe, his eyes wide with shock and something else. Fear. The class went silent, absolutely silent. Every student stared. Instructor Gregor's mouth hung open. Nathaniel stood in the center of the ring. For one terrible moment, violet light flickered in his eyes. Then he blinked, and it was gone. He looked down at his hand as if surprised by what it had done. He stammered, I do not know how. He fell, But the damage was done. People had seen. Not the violet light, it had been too brief, but the strike, the speed, the power. An E-rank student had just sent an S-rank flying across the room with a single hit. That was not supposed to be possible. Ricard was helped to his feet by his entourage. His face was white with humiliation and fury. He pointed at Nathaniel with a shaking hand. He cheated, he snarled. He is using forbidden techniques. He has an illegal enhancement. I demand an investigation. Instructor Gregor, finally remembering his job, stepped forward. Orinwald, he said carefully. Report to the disciplinary office, now. Nathaniel walked out of the training hall with every eye on his back. His heart was pounding. He had made a mistake, a potentially fatal mistake. If they investigated, if they tested him, if they found the spirit bond. But as he walked down the corridor toward the disciplinary office, a voice spoke in his mind, calm and cold as winter iron. That was sloppy, Vaneheart said, but not catastrophic. They cannot detect our bond through standard testing. The resonance crystal measures innate mana. I am not innate. I am external, bonded. Their instruments are not designed to find what I am. You are safe, for now. Nathaniel exhaled slowly. For now, he repeated. But we must be more careful, Vaneheart continued. Your reflexes are becoming instinctive. Your body is adapting to my power faster than expected. Soon, hiding will become more difficult. We need to accelerate the timeline. What timeline? Nathaniel asked. The timeline for becoming strong enough that hiding is no longer necessary, Vaneheart said. The timeline for making them fear you more than you fear discovery. The disciplinary hearing was brief and inconclusive, without evidence of illegal enhancement, and with Ricard unable to explain how an E-rank student could have possibly cheated in a way that produced such results. The matter was filed as an anomaly. Nathaniel received a warning for excessive force and was returned to classes. But the incident had consequences. Ricard Solnvarn now had a personal vendetta, and worse, the incident report crossed the desk of someone far more dangerous than a spoiled noble student. Professor Lysandra Velkith read the report in her office that evening. She read it twice. Then she leaned back in her chair and stared at the ceiling with an expression that was equal parts fascination and calculation. He survived the library, she murmured, and now he is displaying combat abilities far beyond his rank. Interesting. Very interesting. She opened a drawer in her desk and removed a communication crystal. She activated it with a touch of mana. A moment later, a voice answered. Deep, authoritative, cold. Yes, the voice said. Dean Hargraven, Lysandra said. I believe we have a situation with the Orinwald boy. He may have successfully bonded with something in the Forbidden Library. There was a long pause. Then the dean's voice returned, and it carried something that Lysandra had never heard in it before. A note of genuine concern. Which section of the library? Hargraven asked. The central chamber, Lysandra said. Another pause, longer this time. Monitor him, Hargraven said finally. Do not engage, do not alert him. I want to know exactly what he bonded with before we act. If it is what I think it is, then this situation requires delicate handling. The crystal went dark. Lysandra sat in the silence of her office, turning the implications over in her mind. She had sent the boy into the library, expecting him to die. It was supposed to be a clean elimination, a troublesome student removed through his own foolishness. Instead, she had potentially created something far more dangerous than a dead student. She had potentially created a weapon. The weeks that followed were a strange period of calm. On the surface, nothing changed. Nathaniel continued his routine, classes by day, training by night. Alara continued to sit with him at meals, a small act of defiance that had gradually become accepted by the student body as simply one of those inexplicable things that quiet people do. But beneath the surface, everything was shifting. Nathaniel's power was growing at a rate that surprised even Vainheart. The spirit attributed it to bloodline resonance. Aldrich's genetic legacy made Nathaniel an almost perfect vessel for war spirit energy. Where other hosts might take years to fully integrate a spirit bond, Nathaniel was achieving in weeks what should have taken months. And with each surge of growth, another memory vanished. The sound of his mother singing, gone. The color of the wildflowers that grew behind their village house, gone. The name of his childhood dog, gone. Small things, insignificant things. Things he did not notice were missing until he reached for them and found only empty space. Vainheart was honest about it. Each time a memory disappeared, he told Nathaniel. He did not hide the cost. He did not pretend it was painless. This is the price, he would say. This is what power costs. Are you still willing to pay? And every time, Nathaniel said yes, because the alternative was worse. The alternative was remaining weak in a world that had already proven it would destroy the weak without hesitation. But one night, something happened that shook him. He was training in the abandoned grounds, pushing through a particularly brutal sequence of combat forms, when Alara appeared. She had taken to visiting him during his night sessions occasionally, sitting on a fallen column and watching him work. She never interrupted. She simply watched, and her presence was a comfort he did not fully acknowledge. That night, she brought tea, 2 cups, steaming in the cold air. She held one out to him as he paused between sets. He took it, grateful for the warmth. They sat together in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Alara said, "Do you remember the first day I sat with you in the dining hall?" Nathaniel frowned. He searched his memory. He remembered that she sat with him. He remembered the whispers. He remembered her frost-colored eyes. But the specific words she had said, the exact moment, it was blurred, faded, like a painting left in the rain. "I remember," he said, but his voice was uncertain. Alara looked at him. Her eyes were sharp. Concerned. "You hesitated," she said. "You never hesitate when you remember something clearly." She set down her tea. "Nathaniel, what is happening to your memories?" He did not answer immediately. He stared into his cup. The steam rose and disappeared into the night air. Finally, he said, "It is the price of the bond, of the power. Vainheart takes memories as payment, small ones, things I do not need." Alara's expression did not change, but her hands tightened around her cup. "Things you do not need," she repeated. "And who decides what you need? You or the spirit? Vanehart's voice rumbled in Nathaniel's mind. She is perceptive, this healer, and she is not wrong to be concerned. But the contract is the contract. I cannot change its terms. Nathaniel relayed this to Alara. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I am a healer. Memory is my specialty. The mind is where I do my best work. She looked at him directly. I cannot stop the spirit from taking what is owed, but I can help you preserve what matters most. I can teach you techniques to anchor your core memories so deeply that they become the last things taken, not the first. Nathaniel stared at her. You would do that. She smiled. That small, barely there smile that he had come to recognize as genuine warmth. I told you on the first day, you are not alone here. I meant it. From that night forward, Alara added a new element to their routine. After Nathaniel's combat training, she would spend an hour working with him on memory preservation. She taught him techniques from the healing arts, methods of encoding important memories with emotional anchors so strong that they resisted erosion. His grandfather's face, his mother's voice, the promise, the sound of the blade. These became fortified, protected, the last line of defense against the hungry void of Vanehart's price. It was during one of these sessions that Nathaniel realized something. He was looking at Alara's face in the moonlight, watching her concentrate as she guided him through a memory anchoring exercise. And he realized that her face had become one of the memories he was most afraid of losing. That somewhere in the weeks of shared silence and quiet support, she had become essential. Not just as an ally, as a person, as the one fixed point in a world of deception and danger. He did not say this aloud. There was no time for such things. Not yet. Not while enemies circled and secrets threatened to unravel everything. But he filed the realization away in the deepest, most protected part of his mind. And he made sure Alara's memory anchoring techniques were applied most strongly to every moment he had spent with her. Now, dear viewer, we come to the turning point. The moment when Nathaniel's carefully constructed double life was forced into the open. And it began, as so many disasters do, with a lie. Professor Lysandra called Nathaniel to her office on a Tuesday morning. Her expression was grave, concerned, almost sympathetic. It was the most convincing performance he had ever seen from her. Orinwald, she said, I am afraid there has been an incident. A valuable artifact has gone missing from the restricted vault. A spirit containment orb dating from the era of the Great Binding. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Security traces indicate that the vault was accessed using a basement-level entry point. Your dormitory is in the basement level. You are the only student with proximity access. Nathaniel understood immediately. This was a frame. Clean, professional, and almost impossible to disprove. The artifact probably never existed, or if it did, Lysandra herself had moved it. I did not take anything, he said calmly. Lysandra nodded with false sympathy. I believe you, she said, but the evidence is the evidence. The disciplinary board will convene tomorrow. Given your family history and the nature of the missing item, the presumption will not be in your favor. She let that sink in. However, there is one way to resolve this quickly. Academy law permits an accused student to challenge their accuser to a formal duel. If you win, the charges are dropped. No investigation, no board. And who is my accuser? Nathaniel asked, though he already knew. Lysandra smiled. Ricard Solnvarn filed the report. Of course he did. Ricard, still burning from his humiliation in the sparring ring, had found a way to force a confrontation. And Lysandra had helped him, because she wanted to see what Nathaniel could do. She wanted to measure the weapon she had accidentally created. Nathaniel had a choice: refuse the duel and face a disciplinary board that was almost certainly stacked against him, or accept the duel and risk revealing his true power before he was ready. Inside his mind, Vanehart spoke, accept, but control the output. Show enough to win, not enough to reveal what I am. Make it look like natural talent finally awakening, a late bloomer. they will believe it because they want to believe it. The alternative, that you are bonded to a first-rank war spirit, is too terrifying for them to accept without proof. Nathaniel looked at Lysandra. "I accept the duel," he said. The formal dueling arena at Argentwhile was a coliseum in miniature. Tiered seating surrounded a circular platform of reinforced stone. Protective wards shimmered around the edges, designed to contain stray magic and prevent lethal damage to spectators. The entire student body was present. Word had spread like wildfire. The E rank versus the S rank. The traitor's grandson versus the duke's son. It was the most anticipated event of the semester. Ricard stood on one side of the platform, resplendent in his formal dueling uniform, his enchanted rapier gleaming with blue-white mana. He was smiling, confident, certain of victory. Behind him, his entourage cheered and called out encouragements. Nathaniel stood on the other side. He wore his grandfather's coat over his academy uniform. He carried no weapon. His hands hung at his sides, empty and still. The referee, a senior professor named Aldwin, called both duelists to the center. He recited the rules. First, to incapacitate or force surrender wins. Lethal force is prohibited. Leaving the platform constitutes forfeit. He looked between them. "Are both parties ready?" "Ready," Ricard said, his smile widening. "Ready," Nathaniel said quietly. "Begin." Ricard attacked instantly. He was fast, genuinely fast, his S-rank mana propelling him forward like a launched arrow. His rapier traced a silver arc toward Nathaniel's chest. It was a textbook opening strike, designed to end the fight in a single blow against a weaker opponent. Nathaniel did not move until the last possible moment. Then he shifted. Just slightly, just enough. The rapier passed through the space where his chest had been a heartbeat earlier. Ricard's eyes widened. He recovered, spun, struck again, and again, and again. Each time, Nathaniel moved just enough to avoid the blade, no more, no less. He did not counterattack. He did not raise his hands. He simply was not where the sword was. It looked effortless. It looked impossible. The crowd fell silent. This was not what they expected. They expected the E rank to be destroyed in seconds. Instead, they were watching something they could not explain. A student with no measurable mana was dodging an S rank's attacks as if he could see the future. Ricard's frustration mounted. His attacks became wilder, more powerful, less controlled. He poured more mana into his strikes, making the air crack with each swing. Sweat ran down his face. His breathing grew ragged. He had been fighting at maximum output for 2 full minutes, and he had not landed a single hit. "Stand still," he screamed. "Fight me, you coward. Stop running." Nathaniel stopped. He planted his feet. He squared his shoulders. He looked directly into Ricard's eyes, and for the first time since the duel began, he moved forward. It happened in 3 seconds. 1. Nathaniel closed the distance between them with a single step that covered 10 feet. Ricard's eyes could not track the movement. His brain registered only that the E-rank student was suddenly inside his guard, closer than arm's length. 2. Nathaniel's right hand came up, open palm, no mana visible, no glow, no flash, just a hand moving with speed that belonged to a different category of existence. 3. The palm connected with Ricard's chest, center mass, perfect placement. Ricard Solnvarn, S-rank prodigy, son of a duke, champion of his year, flew backward across the entire width of the dueling platform. He hit the protective ward barrier at the far edge with enough force to make the magical shields flare white. He slid to the ground and did not get up. The arena was silent. Completely, absolutely silent. 500 students and 30 professors sat in their seats and did not make a sound. The referee stood frozen, his hand half raised. 3 seconds. The entire fight, from the moment Nathaniel decided to end it, had lasted 3 seconds. Then the silence broke, not with cheering, with a sound like a collective gasp. A sound of 500 people simultaneously realizing that everything they thought they knew was wrong. The referee found his voice. "Victor," he announced, his tone shaking slightly. "Nathaniel Orinwald." Nathaniel stood alone in the center of the platform. He did not celebrate. He did not smile. He looked up at the faculty section of the seating, where the professors sat in their formal robes. His eyes found one face in particular. Professor Lysandra Velkith was staring at him with an expression of naked hunger. Scientific fascination mixed with something darker. She had gotten what she wanted. She had seen the weapon perform, and beside her, in the highest seat, Dean Voss Hargraven sat perfectly still. His face showed nothing, but his hands, hidden beneath his robes, were clenched so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. "He knows," Vainhart said in Nathaniel's mind. "He does not know what I am specifically, but he knows you are bonded to something powerful, and he is afraid." "Good. Let him be afraid. Fear makes powerful men make mistakes." Nathaniel turned and walked off the platform. The crowd parted before him like water before a ship's prow. No one spoke to him. No one touched him. They simply stared with wide eyes as the boy they had laughed at 6 weeks ago walked past them carrying a power they could not comprehend. Ilara was waiting at the arena exit. Her face was pale, but her eyes were bright. She fell into step beside him without a word. They walked together through the academy corridors, and for the first time, other students moved out of their way. That night, Nathaniel did not train. He sat in his basement room with Ilara, and they talked about what came next. The mask was cracked. Not shattered, but cracked. People would ask questions. Ricard would demand answers. Lysandra would push harder. "And Hargraven. Hargraven is the real threat," Nathaniel said. "Vainhart told me. He is the one who signed my grandfather's execution order." Ilara's eyes widened. "The Dean?" She processed this for a moment. Then her expression hardened. "What do we do?" "We need proof," Nathaniel said. "Proof of what he did, proof of why. And we need allies, real ones. People who will stand with us when the time comes." "I know someone," Ilara said. "A student who was expelled last year. Dorian Ashwick. He was a swordsman, top of his class, until he discovered something about the Academy's true purpose. They threw him out and erased his records, but he is still in the city, and he has been gathering information." Nathaniel nodded. "Then we find him. But first, there is something I need to do. Something I should have done weeks ago." The next morning, Nathaniel descended into the deepest levels of the Academy, below the Forbidden Library, below the foundation stones, into tunnels that predated the Academy by centuries. Vainhart guided him, the spirit's ancient memory serving as a map through passages that no living person knew existed. They found it after an hour of walking. A chamber carved from living rock, its walls covered in murals depicting the alliance between spirits and humans. And in the center of the chamber, mounted on a pedestal of crystallized mana, a sword. Stormveil. His grandfather's blade, the weapon Aldrich had carried through 17 campaigns, the sword that had been bonded to Vainhart's essence, making it one of the most powerful spirit weapons ever forged. After Aldrich's execution, the Magisterium had tried to destroy it. They failed. So they hid it here, in the deepest dark, hoping it would be forgotten. Nathaniel reached out and grasped the hilt. The moment his skin touched the metal, the blade erupted with violet light. The murals on the walls blazed to life. The entire chamber hummed with resonant energy. And in Nathaniel's mind, Vainhart laughed. A sound of pure, fierce joy. "Welcome home," the spirit said. "Now we are complete." Nathaniel lifted the sword. It was lighter than it should have been. Perfectly balanced. It felt like an extension of his arm, of his will, of his very soul. The violet light settled into a steady glow along the blade's edge. He stood there in the ancient chamber, holding his grandfather's sword, bound to his grandfather's spirit, standing in a place his grandfather had once stood. And he made the promise again, not as a frightened 6-year-old this time, as a warrior. "I will prove you were right, grandfather, and I will make them pay for what they did." The journey back to the surface took less time than the descent. Nathaniel emerged into daylight with Stormveil strapped across his back, hidden beneath his grandfather's coat. He had barely stepped into the main corridor when a voice called his name. Orinwald. He turned. A young man stood in the shadows of a pillar, tall, lean, with dark hair cut short and a scar running from his left ear to his jaw. He wore civilian clothes, not a uniform. His eyes were sharp, assessing, and carried the particular wariness of someone who had learned not to trust institutions. "Dorian Ashwick," the young man said. "Alara sent me. She said you might need someone who knows how to fight and who knows what this academy really is." He stepped forward, and Nathaniel saw that he carried a sword at his hip. Not an academy-issued training blade, a real weapon, worn and well used. "I was expelled for asking the wrong questions. They said I was unstable, dangerous." He smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. They were right about the dangerous part. Nathaniel studied him for a moment, then he extended his hand. "Welcome to the team." Dorian shook it. His grip was firm, calloused, the hand of a fighter. "So," he said, "Alara tells me you are planning to take down the dean of the most powerful magical academy on the continent, a man with connections to the Magisterium Council, the Imperial Guard, and probably half the criminal underworld." He paused. "Sounds fun. When do we start?" "Now," Nathaniel said. "We start now." Dear viewer, what followed was a period of preparation that I could spend hours describing. The training, the planning, the gathering of intelligence. Dorian brought knowledge of the Academy's security systems, its hidden passages, its secret protocols. Alara brought access to medical records and faculty communications, and Nathaniel brought something none of them had expected: leadership. The quiet, unshakable certainty of someone who knows exactly what they are fighting for and refuses to stop until it is achieved. But I will not make you wait through all of that, because the moment you have been waiting for, the moment everything exploded, came sooner than any of them expected. It came on a night when the sky turned red. Dean Voss Hargraven had made his move, not subtly, not politically. He had decided that Nathaniel Orinwald was too dangerous to manage and too valuable to simply expel. He wanted Vainhart. He wanted the war spirit for himself, and he was willing to burn the entire academy to get it. The attack came at midnight. A sealed demon, one of the creatures imprisoned beneath the academy during the Great Binding, was released from its containment. Not accidentally, deliberately. Hargraven broke the seals himself, using his authority as dean to bypass every safety protocol. The demon was a thing of nightmare. A mass of shadow and hunger, 30 feet tall, with too many limbs and a mouth that opened in directions that should not exist. It erupted from the ground floor of the main building, tearing through stone and steel like paper. Students screamed. Professors scrambled for defensive positions. Chaos consumed the academy in seconds. But the demon was not the weapon. The demon was the distraction. While every eye was on the monster, Hargraven moved through the chaos toward Nathaniel's dormitory. He carried a device, a spirit extraction apparatus, banned technology from the era of the Great Binding. It was designed to rip a bonded spirit from its host. The process was not gentle. It was not survivable for the host. Hargraven did not care, but Nathaniel was not in his dormitory. He was already moving. Vainhart had sensed the demon's release the moment the seals broke. He had woken Nathaniel with a single word: war. Nathaniel emerged into the courtyard with Stormveil drawn. The violet blade cast long shadows in the red light of the burning buildings. Students ran past him, fleeing toward the outer gates. One of them, a girl he recognized from his combat theory class, grabbed his arm as she passed. Her eyes were wild with terror. "There is a demon," she gasped. "It came from below. It is destroying everything. Run!" Nathaniel gently removed her hand from his arm. "Get to the outer gates," he said. "Take everyone you can find. Go now." She ran. Nathaniel turned toward the main building, toward the screaming, toward the thing that was tearing his academy apart. Vainhart spoke in his mind. "The demon is a distraction. I can feel Hargraven moving through the lower levels. He is heading toward your dormitory. He carries something. A device. Old technology. Spirit extraction. He means to rip me from you." "Then we do not let him," Nathaniel said. "No, we do not. But first, the demon. If we leave it unchecked, students will die. Hundreds of them." Vainhart paused. "You will need to use more of my power than you ever have before. The cost will be significant." Nathaniel did not hesitate. "How significant?" "A face," Vainhart said. "Someone you love. I cannot control which one. The contract takes what it takes." Nathaniel closed his eyes for one heartbeat. He thought of his mother. He thought of Alara. He thought of his grandfather's smile. Then he opened his eyes and drew Stormveil from beneath his coat. "Do it," he said. The power hit him like a tidal wave. Violet energy erupted from every pore, surrounding him in a corona of light so intense that it cast shadows 100 feet in every direction. Stormveil blazed in his hand, the blade extending, growing, becoming something more than metal. It became an idea. The idea of war itself, given form and edge. Nathaniel moved, not ran, moved. One moment he was in the courtyard, the next he was inside the main building, standing before the demon. The creature towered above him, a writhing mass of darkness and malice. Its many limbs tore at the walls, the ceiling, the fleeing students. Its mouth, that impossible mouth, opened and released a sound that was not a roar, but a negation. A sound that said nothing should exist. Nathaniel raised Stormveil. The violet light intensified until it was almost white, and he struck. The blow was not a physical thing, it was a concept. An absolute statement of force delivered through a blade that had been forged to end wars. The violet arc of energy that erupted from Stormveil's edge traveled through the demon's body like a fault line through stone. For one frozen moment, the creature hung in the air, bisected by light. Then it came apart. Not in pieces, in dissolution. The darkness that composed its body unraveled like smoke in a hurricane. It screamed, that negation sound, but now it was the sound of something being unmade. Layer by layer, the demon dissolved until nothing remained but a faint stain on the air and the smell of ozone. The students who had been cowering in the corridors stared. Professors who had been preparing defensive spells lowered their hands. Every eye in the building was fixed on the figure standing in the center of the destruction. A young man in a patched military coat, holding a sword that blazed with violet fire, surrounded by an aura of power so dense it made the air shimmer. Nathaniel Orinwald, E rank, the weakest student at Argentwhile Academy. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then someone whispered, "What is he?" But Nathaniel was already moving. The demon was dead, but the real enemy was still alive, still hunting. He turned and ran toward the lower levels, toward his dormitory, toward Hargraven. He found the dean in the basement corridor. Hargraven stood before Nathaniel's door, holding the extraction device. It was an ugly thing, all brass and crystal and tubes filled with viscous black liquid. It hummed with a frequency that made Nathaniel's teeth ache. Hargraven turned when he heard footsteps. His face, usually so composed, so benevolent, was twisted with something raw. Greed, desperation, madness. His silver hair was disheveled. His robes were stained with dust and something darker. "Orinwald," he said. His voice was steady despite his appearance. "I should have dealt with you the moment you arrived, just as I dealt with your grandfather." Nathaniel stopped 10 feet away. Stormveil hummed in his hand. The violet glow illuminated the narrow corridor, casting Hargraven's face in sharp relief. "You killed him," Nathaniel said. Not a question, a statement. Hargraven smiled. It was the smile of a man who had stopped pretending. "I signed the order, yes, but killed him? No. I did something worse. I made him watch as we bound Vainhart. I made him see his precious spirit dragged into a grimoire, screaming, and then I had him executed. Because after that, death was a mercy." Inside Nathaniel's mind, Vainhart's presence burned like a sun. The spirit's rage was so vast, so ancient, so absolute that it threatened to overwhelm Nathaniel's consciousness entirely. 400 years of imprisonment, 400 years of darkness and silence and fury, all of it focused on the man standing 10 feet away. But Nathaniel held. He held because he was Aldrich's grandson. He held because control was what pull. Deep inside his chest, where the bond with Vaneheart was anchored, something tugged, like a hook in his soul. The device was already working, already trying to tear the spirit free. Pain. Blinding, absolute pain. Nathaniel gasped, his knees buckled. Stormveil's glow flickered. Vaneheart's voice came through the agony, strained but clear. He cannot take me if you do not break. The device exploits weakness in the bond. Fear, doubt, regret. If your will holds, the bond holds. Do you hear me, boy? Do not break. Nathaniel planted his feet. He straightened his spine. He looked at Hargraven through eyes that blazed with violet fire, and he said one word. No. He raised Stormveil. The pain was still there, screaming through every nerve, but pain was just information. Pain was just the body's way of saying something was wrong, and Nathaniel already knew something was wrong. The entire world was wrong. It had been wrong since the day they killed his grandfather, since the day they imprisoned spirits, since the day men like Hargraven decided that power was more important than justice. He took one step forward, then another. Each step was agony. Each step was defiance. The device screamed. Hargraven's eyes widened. He poured more energy into the apparatus, his own mana feeding the extraction process. It is not possible, Hargraven whispered. No host can resist at this range. The bond should be shattering. My bond, Nathaniel said through gritted teeth, was forged by choice, not by force, not by theft, by choice. And you cannot break what was freely given. He was close now. 5 feet. 4. 3. Hargraven stumbled backward, still holding the device, still pouring power into it. But his face had changed. The greed was gone. The madness was gone. What remained was something simpler, something more primal. Fear. Nathaniel raised Stormveil one final time. The blade blazed so brightly that the entire corridor was washed in violet light. He brought it down, not on Hargraven, on the device. Stormveil shattered the extraction apparatus like glass. Brass and crystal exploded outward. The black liquid evaporated instantly, consumed by violet fire. The humming stopped. The pull on Nathaniel's soul vanished like a snapped cord. Hargraven screamed, not in pain, in loss, in the death of his ambition. He fell to his knees among the wreckage of his device, his hands scrabbling at broken pieces, as if he could reassemble them through will alone. Nathaniel stood over him. Stormveil's point rested an inch from Hargraven's throat. The violet glow reflected in the dean's wide, terrified eyes. For a long moment, neither moved. The only sound was Hargraven's ragged breathing and the distant crackle of fires still burning in the upper levels. Then Nathaniel spoke. You will answer for what you did to my grandfather. You will answer for the spirits you imprisoned. You will answer for the students you endangered tonight. But not to me. Not here. Not like this. He withdrew the blade. Hargraven sagged with relief. You will answer to the world, Nathaniel said. When they learn what you are, when they see the evidence, when the truth is undeniable, that is a punishment worse than death for a man like you. To be seen, to be known, to have your legacy reduced to ash in the eyes of everyone who ever respected you. He turned his back on the dean of Argentwhile Academy. He walked away down the corridor, Stormveil resting on his shoulder, its glow fading to a gentle pulse. Behind him, Hargraven remained on his knees, but his eyes, fixed on Nathaniel's retreating back, held something that was not defeat. It was calculation. It was patience. It was the look of a man who had lost a battle but not yet conceded the war. He would run. Nathaniel knew this. Hargraven would flee the academy before dawn, taking whatever resources and allies he could gather. He would disappear into the shadows of the empire and begin rebuilding, begin planning. "Let him run," Vainhart said. "We know his face, we know his methods, and now we know his weakness. He is afraid of us. That fear will make him predictable. When the time comes, we will find him, and we will finish what your grandfather started." Nathaniel emerged from the basement into the cool night air. The fires were dying. Students huddled in groups, some crying, some staring blankly at the damage. Professors moved among them, healing injuries, casting protective wards, trying to restore order to a world that had been shattered in a single night. Ilara found him first. She ran across the courtyard and threw her arms around him without a word. He held her. He breathed in the scent of her hair. He anchored this moment in the deepest part of his memory, fortified it with every technique she had taught him. Then he pulled back and looked at her face. Her frost-colored eyes, her silver hair, her small, real smile. And he realized, with a cold shock that had nothing to do with the night air, that he could not remember her name. Not her face. He could see her face perfectly. Not her voice. He could hear it clearly. But her name, the word that identified her, it was gone, taken, the price of the power he had used tonight. She saw it in his eyes, the confusion, the searching, the horror of reaching for something that should be there and finding only void. "Nathaniel," she said softly, "it is me, Ilara Mirathan." The name settled back into place like a key into a lock, but it settled as new information, not as recovered memory. He was learning her name again, not remembering it. "I know," he said. His voice was rough. "I know who you are. I just..." For a moment, she took his face in her hands. Her eyes were fierce, determined. "Listen to me," she said. "Whatever it took from you tonight, we will find a way to get it back. I am a healer. Memory is what I do. We will find a way. Do you hear me?" He nodded. He believed her, not because it was logical, not because it was possible, but because she said it with the same unbreakable certainty that he felt when he made promises to his grandfather. They stood together in the ruined courtyard of Argentwhile Academy. Around them, the world was broken. The dean had fled. The truth was still hidden. The war was just beginning. But they were not alone. Dorian appeared from the shadows, his sword drawn, his face grim but alive. Behind him, a handful of other students, people who had seen Nathaniel destroy the demon, people who had watched him save their lives, approached with expressions of awe and tentative loyalty. Nathaniel looked at them all, his team, his allies. The beginning of something that could change everything. He sheathed Stormveil. He straightened his grandfather's coat, and he spoke. "Hargraven is gone, but he will return. And when he does, he will bring an army. We need to be ready. We need to be stronger. We need to uncover every secret this academy has buried and bring it into the light." He paused. "My grandfather believed that spirits and humans could coexist, that the binding was a crime, that the truth was worth dying for." He looked at each of them in turn. "I am not asking you to die. I am asking you to fight, to stand with me against people who believe that power gives them the right to destroy anyone who threatens their control. Will you stand?" Silence. Then Dorian stepped forward. He drove his sword point first into the ground and knelt beside it. "I stand with you," he said. Ilara took Nathaniel's hand. "I stand with you," she said. One by one, the others stepped forward. Some knelt, some simply nodded, but all of them chose. all of them decided in that moment that the boy who had been laughed at 6 weeks ago was someone worth following into the dark. Nathaniel looked up at the sky. The red glow of the fires was fading. Stars were becoming visible through the smoke. Somewhere out there, Hargraven was running. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting to be found. Somewhere out there, his grandfather's legacy was waiting to be fulfilled. He squeezed Alara's hand. He felt Vanehart's presence, warm and steady in his chest. He felt Stormvale's weight on his back, a reminder of what he carried and why. And he made one final promise. Not to his grandfather this time, to himself. I will remember, no matter what it costs, no matter what is taken. I will remember why I fight. I will remember who I love. I will remember who I am. And when the time comes, I will make them remember too. Dear viewer, this is only the beginning. Nathaniel Orinwald's war has just started. Hargraven is gathering his forces. The Magisterium is watching. The spirits imprisoned beneath 100 academies are waiting for liberation, and the price of power continues to climb. Season 2 is coming, and I promise you, what happens next will make everything you just heard sound like a bedtime story. Subscribe to RiseArc, hit that notification bell, because when the next chapter drops, you do not want to be the last one to know what Nathaniel does when he finally catches up to the man who killed his grandfather. The weakest are always judged first. The strongest are never judged in time. Remember that.